And we are joined by our next guest, coach of the Vegas Golden Knights, first in the Pacific Division, first in the Western Conference after two big wins against the second-place team. Thanks for joining us, Bruce. We really appreciate it on a game day.
All right. Thanks for having me.
This stretch, obviously, you guys are playing big-time opponents every week or every game, and none of the teams around you are losing. I'm sure you'd prefer LA or Edmonton to lose a game here and now, but how good of preparation do you think this is for the playoffs in terms of not just the opponents you're playing, but the fact that because no one around you is losing, the pressure is on to win pretty much every night?
Yeah, we look at it more. I mean, the pressure to win is to get in the playoffs first, right? And we've accomplished that. So we've gotten through some stretches of adversity, and the pressures to win is once you're in. I think right now this is more, if you're going to have a hiccup, it probably would, need to be once you're in, but not once they've started. So I don't think we look at it as pressure. It's more about enjoying the moment. We're playing against good teams. What's at stake in 2 weeks? You have to start your preparation long before that. You just don't show up in the playoffs and expect to get your game in order. So I think our guys understand the value right now of keep building your game. I don't even know if they notice what's going on around us necessarily in the division on a daily basis. They certainly check. I'm the same way. I'm more worried about our own team. I mean, if a team around us rips off 10, 12 in a row, there's nothing we can do about that. We just sort of control our own environment. So I think we've done a good job with that. I think, honestly, I think Edmonton and LA are taking the same approach. Let's just win our games, and Vegas stumbles or whoever around them stumbles, then an opportunity exists to move up. But that's how we're kind of looking at it.
Bruce, the start of the season, Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill got off to such a great start, and Brossoit had surgery in the offseason, was sent to Henderson, and I think a lot of people forgot about him. And here we've seen him lately get some huge points for you. How have you done this with your goaltending this year, in a year where you've been, again, ravaged by some injuries, especially in the back where it's most important?
Well, it's been out of necessity. The only time there was like Hill and Tomer were going very well, and LB was starting to find his rhythm right in Henderson. So that was probably the only time we discussed, should we take a look at LB because of his experience and he's playing well down there? How does that affect our other two guys? And it was a short discussion because we were quite happy with Tomer and Hill at the time. So it was more about, LB's just going to have to be patient, keep working on his game. And sure enough, his opportunity came and has come around again. So these things sort of play themselves out. Quick comes into the mix at a good time, adds some good depth for us. The young Patera comes up when we need a breather. So it's kind of fallen into place. Probably never, ever, ever, ever script it this way. But at the end of the day, it always seems like there's a guy ready to take the ball. And our team hasn't changed their style in front of the goaltender, which I think is important. That we've just kept playing, and it's worked out. Like I said, not necessarily how you draw it up, but worked out just fine for us.
It hasn't just been in net. There have been injuries all over the place with this team. I know you weren't here last year. I watched this team really struggle, and they missed the playoffs with a bunch of injuries. I don't know if you can compare how many injuries have happened this year to last year, but the team has obviously handled it really well this year, and you're first in the West. What do you think is the biggest thing that's allowed this team to stay atop the division and stay afloat with all the injuries they've suffered?
Yeah, well, there has to be some level of comparison because it's been Mark Stone, your captain again, and
right.
Then the goaltending position last year it was Robin and LB, I think. And so at the end of the day, there are some similarities. So maybe the guys learned a bit going through it last year that you got to, you can't let it bother you. I think I think our structure has helped us win games because of using so many different goaltenders. Our guys just continue to play the same way and don't make a lot of adjustments. I think that's helped. And I know Pete has excellent structure. Look at Dallas, the way they're going. So I'm not knocking his versus ours. I just think that has helped us a lot. We've moved different D in, less so in the second half of the year, a lot of different forwards. But we've still managed to play our type of game most nights and find ways to win and stay in games. I think that's the key. When you have injuries and you're missing key people that are difference makers that impact the game, you can't take yourself out of a game. You got to stay in the game and then but play the right way and then wait for the opportunity for one of your players to make a play. And it's been different guys. Like I was asked that question, so many different guys. And again, it's Dorofeyev last night, not a guy you're going to think of, but he's in the opportunity to make a play. He's a good offensive player. So you put these players in a position to make those plays, and we have. So it tells you, A, you have good players, and B, allowing them to play to their strength and staying in the game with good team structure and composure, discipline, all the words you want to use. I think that's what's, sort of been really important for this group.
How much could this experience be great for Dorofeyev? I mean, obviously he's making a significant impact now, but for a young kid to play such big minutes in high pressure situations and make the impact that he is, it's got to be just bode well for the future.
Yeah, I think that you see it around the league, and you always hear about experience, and that matters, obviously. But young legs, young enthusiasm, energy, those guys can really help drive your team, right? You just need the right balance. You look at it every year in the playoffs, there's always young guys that come through, right? They just need the opportunity. Not everyone is ready for that to step up, but given the opportunity, some will, and then we've got to find out who, right? So I don't think you should ever cap off a young player and say, well, he hasn't played in the playoffs, so we're going to have to be careful. I think you have to give them opportunity. If they've shown in tough environments late in the year they can do it, and last night was Minnesota's a tight checking team. They're battling for first place. They got some heaviness to their group, so to me that's a good barometer of what a playoff hockey game would look like, and to see a young guy excel in that, that only bodes well for us.
Bruce, I remember when you kind of arrived in Vegas in the summer and we asked you about Jack Eichel, and he'd never played in the playoffs, and you said he's had a lot of individual success, but that doesn't always translate to team success, and that was kind of one of the goals. How have you seen his game progress, and how excited are you to see him in the playoffs for the first time?
Well, it's progressed, for my eye test, right? I wasn't there in Buffalo, but I know here he's been an excellent defensive center, two-way, valuing a 200-foot game. I mean, I think he's our highest plus-minus forward, right? So you can argue about that stat all day long, but to me, he cares about defense. He plays against good players. He's, been really good in our system from day one as a centerman, putting out fires in our own end. He doesn't spend a lot of time there. Tells me, he's making good reads. Offensively, I think his game is very good. Had different line mates a lot this year. So that part of his game is coming. He'll always make his plays. So I'm excited for Jack. I mean, those guys are and come playoff time, the big names, those are the ones that oftentimes can impact a series. And oftentimes, Jesse, they can also be neutralized by the other guys, top guys, and it becomes your depth that can win you some rounds. So it's different things that happen in the playoffs. But at the end of the day, I'm sure he's excited as anybody in the room to get started, simply because, it's he's a first timer. And I think we're all looking forward to see how it plays out, because it is a different animal and you have to live it. And I believe he's prepared for it, but we'll see in a few weeks.
Russo, one guy that has lived it is Barbashev. He was big parts of those St. Louis Blues team, the team that won the Stanley Cup, 60-point guy in St. Louis, and a real crafty trade. You get him, and not only do you get him, you put him right on your first line, and he's got 13 points in 18 games. What have you seen from him, and how excited are you to see what he could bring come postseason?
Yeah, I mean, he does a little bit of everything. He's really good in small areas, like on the boards or in tight areas of getting the puck to the skilled people. He gets to the interior ice. He'll score his goals, going to the net, top of the blue paint. He's physical, plays on both special teams. So I think he was a really, really good add for us, especially when you lose a Stone and a Will Carrier that brings some of those elements for you. I mean, we gave up a really good prospect in Zach Dean. So, I mean, obviously you have to, pay the price to get something good, but I thought it was a really great move by Krim and his staff to identify him. I thought, he's been an excellent fit for us, and will have playoff attributes. And I saw it in St. Louis a number of years ago, and he's grown his game since then. So he's been there. He's been in those pressure moments. So that's the other thing. It shouldn't faze him at all.
You mentioned this team's ability to kind of stay in games and wait for the moment to take advantage. I mean, it seemed like this team has come back so many times in the third period this year to win games that they were trailing. There isn't one offensive stat, defensive stat that this team really stands out in. They're they're good in areas, but they're not great in any real statistic. What do you think it is that has made this team the best in the Western Conference so far?
Well, we stick out in wins, right? And I think that's right. That's the important part. Would we like to be better in certain areas, Jesse? Absolutely. We talk about it all the time. We'll have a post-game review coming up in about 20 minutes with the group about what we could have done better last night, and hopefully work on that. And so it's a never-ending process, and you hope it comes together at the right time. So, for us, I think it's depth, different guys coming in, seizing the moment. We talked about that with Dorofeyev. Paul Cotter got hot, Michael Amadio's and we've had different guys other than that, the usual suspects, so to speak, that have stepped up. Different goaltenders have won for us. So I think it's just that speaks volumes about the team and how much they're going to play for one another. And when it's their turn, it's their turn. And we say that a lot, whether it's stepping in to protect a teammate, block a shot, make a play, that's be ready to seize the moment when it's your turn. And I think we've done a really good job team-wide at that. And sometimes these injuries, when a guy like Jack is out, or Stoney or Petro and Theo, some of the goaltenders, it allows other guys to seize those opportunities, right? And then excel in them. So they've been through it, and they know that, yep, I know I got to do my part. And I think that's been the biggest thing, that you look at the glass half full type of guy. When you have injuries, it allows other players to grow their game. And I think that's what we've done.
Bruce, how much do you ever look back at your coaching career and just think about, where you've come, where you started? Because, just looking, you started in Jacksonville. I don't know if you could talk about what brought you there, but then, to go to Washington, have to take a step back and sort of grind your way back to this point, going to the Stanley Cup final, winning a Jack Adams, losing your job, coming to Vegas. This has been an all-encompassing long coaching career.
Means I'm getting old, right? All that happens.
You don't look it
to me. So, yes, there's times you look back. Try not to. You try to, have your head and brain and mind where your feet are. And I think I try to do that as much as possible. Stay in the moment, but you can't help but reflect. I tell you, when that happens, honestly, is when you're on the road sometimes and you run into people you haven't seen in forever. For example, maybe a kid you coached in Jacksonville or Trenton. Someone reached out to me the other day, one of those stops. And so those are the times I think maybe you look back, but I think that's when you're done. You're probably, I still think of the 2019 playoffs, because I want my name in the Stanley Cup, and that's the one that sticks out, and that will come back and I want to say haunt, because that's a strong word, but reflect on what you could have done better in Game 7 to win that last game. It's tough when you win 15 playoff games in a spring, and you need 16, right? Like that last one. So those are some things you think back, but I think back more moments, guys I've coached that I've run into that are coaching now. I think that makes me feel good, that they've got into the business and they ask you about experiences and that they're looking for knowledge. I think that kind of is important to me, that you've built relationships too with individuals and that have gone into the same, sort of profession you've gone into. So that's how I look at it. A lot of miles, a lot of great memories, and I keep getting better, right? I think, you can coach forever and still not have it all figured out. So that's where we're at.
You said it. You want your name on the cup. We ask the players all the time how excited they are about the playoffs. How excited are you? You get into the playoffs. I feel like a 7-game series. The tactics really come into play. Like how pumped are you for this?
You got adjustments, and you got to know your team and who can handle what you can change, what you can. I think when I was younger, maybe you don't realize how many adjustments are made, or sorry, the ebb and flow of the series. Like when you win a game, you're on top of the world. When you lose one, you're kind of like, it really resets and all the momentum goes to the other team. And the media is like, oh, they're done now. They got exposed. You know what I mean? That there's so much narrative involved, and you got to really stay level headed. And so for me, that's exciting in the playoffs to, best against best type of thing. That's what it usually works out to be. The storylines of who steps up, there's always a name or two that you don't expect. So I'm still a fan of the game too, right? So those things I think are important for the game. And but I just, like I said, I get excited because, as you said, it's the end prize, right? That everyone wants. And some of our guys in the room have had that, and now they want it more. I've never had it. I just want it once. And imagine once you have it once, you want it twice, et cetera. I hear that all the time from champions. So that's what excites me. I think it's the greatest playoffs in any sport. That's the other thing. It's grueling. It's long. And when you win it, it's, you've truly paid the price. So that like I said, Stanley Cup playoff hockey since I was basically 7 years old has always sort of got me excited. And this year's no different.
Great. We can't wait to watch it. Thanks so much for joining us, Bruce, on the road on a back-to-back. We really appreciate the time.
Okay. Thanks, fellas. Have a good day.
Yep. Good luck the rest of the way.